We both in frame.
You are both in the frame.
Okay, this is our camera here.
Everybody's frame.
All right, we're being framed. Hey, Scott Grove here with Imagine Woodworking, and I'm at the Marc Adams School of Woodworking in Indianapolis. I have the pleasure of teaching with Nick Agar. If you don't know Nick, well, Google him. He's like everywhere. He's a world-class wood turner and has a fishing line and all this stuff. But as usual, I'm not interested in any of that. I'm interested in the backstory and how you became the great person that you are. So with all that said, again, it's a great hanging out with you this week. So let's just start at the beginning. Tell me, where were you born and what was your family life like? You know, were you have any artistic inspiration? Like, were your parents artists or whatnot? Or
That's me. Well, we just landed in here. We just finished work, and here we are doing this with Scott. And as lively as he is, I don't know any of the questions he's about to ask me. So I'll try and go through some of those more preferable answers. So where was I born? I was born in London, mate. So, yeah, London.
is that Cockney? Is that a Cockney?
Well, that's somebody terrible one. Well, I ended up Scottish Indian, you know. But I was born in London, and growing up out of London in the countryside, my parents moved. My father actually was into horticulture.
Okay.
And then we moved for him to work with deaf people. So we moved to southern England,
I'm not kidding.
out into the countryside. And I guess that spawned a lot of my interest in some of the things I do now.
Okay.
But no, I didn't do any art training or art school. I did actually go to an art college to try and fit in there. And we had to do a project, and it was just, I don't want to draw or paint this project. It sucked whenever I was so it was just out of there.
Sure.
I guess I was more interested in motorized transport.
Okay.
And girls.
Well, motor oil and perfume. What else? There's something that you get better than that.
So yeah, that's it. And then eventually, having worked through various things, I thought I was going to be an ESM nurse.
Okay.
And, that was good. My father had a heart attack at a young age, so I had to go home, be the man around the house.
Did you go to university? So
Nope.
Okay.
It didn't happen. I left school, didn't get on with my father, got out the way. Worked with many handicapped children, was an outdoor pursuits instructor for a while.
Oh, okay.
So, climbing, abseiling, kayaking.
Outward bound. We have.
Outward bound. Yeah, good old mix.
Sure.
Keep yourself fit. But then I did what we call in the UK City and Guilds forestry. There's phases. So you study in different phases of forestry, whether you're going to go up tree planting programs or first and second thinnings, which is literally conifers, pine trees,
Sure.
to be a tree doctor or I'm doing those things. So that's where I took my path in the end.
Okay.
I stayed back in the countryside and I was a lumberjack.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds okay, doesn't it?
Nice.
But I wasn't really built and too tall and lanky for tree climbing.
Okay.
So I broke my back in a tree fell in accident, actually.
Did it fall on you?
No, it had already fallen.
Right.
And trees are, when they fall, things happen inside them you don't always see.
Yeah. A lot of things when
Cutting on a slope, undercutting on a slope, and the tree had shattered inside. So it was a pop inside the tree as they were pulling up, which prolapsed to this and the
Okay. That's so interesting. I actually had a 100-foot, 22-inch diameter tree pop off and land right on my foot and bury my foot a foot into the ground and completely crush my foot. So it's that's another story.
That explains your impediment.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you broke your back. You figured
it was a decision then. I'm not going to be able to do the same tree work.
Sure.
Less machinery, modern machinery was taken over. There's 5 or 6 guys in the forest, and then a machine comes in and goes snip, selects it, sneds it,
Right.
And you're like, okay.
So now how old are you when you broke your back?
Well, you have 20, my son, 27 now, so 28 years ago, half of that. So yeah, mid-20s.
So were you doing any woodworking or art on the side or anything like that?
Very little.
Okay.
Very little. My interest was more in nature.
Sure.
I would chainsaw up a stool or make a rustic table or something, but not so artsy really. Although the art side was already an interest.
Sure.
I didn't really have the time. I never painted. Photographed.
Sure. So, okay. So after you broke your back, you needed to do something different. So where'd you go from there?
I joined a Rural Skills Trust, and I took a woodturning apprenticeship.
Okay.
Because I had the knowledge of timber, if you like.
Sure.
The Rural Skills Trust let me join her to spend time with a guy who had an old rack saw bench.
Okay.
which was a field marshal tractor, which has a big flywheel on the side, hand crank start, 5.5 foot circular saw, and then we opened up parcels and parcels of timber that were pulled out by a horse.
Okay.
From a forest, which was ancient forest, inaccessible.
Road.
Yeah. So we get this really cool
Wait,
timber.
no trees left in the UK.
Yes, it is. Plenty in those impossible to get up.
Einstein.
So because it was a rural skills trust, that was all befitting.
Okay.
So it was just too much timber to learn from. I learned so much more from opening up timber that had once been felling.
Sure.
So that all went hand in hand.
Okay.
Blacksmith on the side and other crafts. So that was a good starting block. Albert good studio, and I grew from that. So my apprenticeship with Dougie Hart, who Richard Raffin worked with. So Richard Raffin and myself both learned in the town of Totnes in Devon. And Richard, of course, went off to Australia, but that was the genre. So it was production kitchenware that I started with. Then,
Spoons, cutting boards.
yeah, totally. Spindle turning, a lot of it.
Charcuterie boards.
Those words wouldn't have been around. What's a charcuterie? So, just your basics.
Okay.
We made wooden fruit. That's about the only non-utilitarian item we make.
Sure. Are we just selling at a gallery or craft shows or?
For my master, I was just an apprentice. So
You're not for him.
Yeah, what I made was there sold elsewhere. Sometimes it would end up in David Meadows, London, but it was all over the place.
Okay.
Lots of Iroko. I call it Ichoka. Great production work. Timber. Remember, it'd be like teak. You'll understand that one. Yeah, nasty stuff, but cook.
And you start turning.
Yeah, that's beech, yew, Iroko, and ash.
Okay.
Much it.
Okay. And then what?
Dougie passed away before the end of my apprenticeship. He went in hospital, had cancer, and he never came out again. He gave me an order, a large order, before he went and said, finish this, don't come and visit me. And then, now what I do? Wow, now I'm kind of not quite finished. Sure. Like 2 3/4 years in, and I'm okay with what I'm doing, but I understand the materials, but
sure,
hadn't quite finished. So it was a decision to do it. So I got a grant and took the plunge to open a shop and see how we went.
That shop, were you primarily turning or?
It was all turning, commission, stuff like
that. Still functional?
I started to wander off.
When you started to really go, some of your workers, we thought it was wonderful. I love it.
I wasn't allowed to put a bead on a spice scoop. I wasn't allowed to change a design with Dougie. It was set design.
Sure, right.
So it was like,
in the evenings,
even if you made a mushroom or toadstool or something, you could do that. So I suddenly was allowed freedom to make.
Sure.
And then I had more interest in lumps of timber. So when you look at artists over here like Christian Burchard, who does a beautiful wetwood turnings that morph and shred.
Yeah.
So I there was no line to adhere to. There was no fashion.
Okay.
The book by Dale Nish of Artistic Wood Turning was an amazing thing to me because David Ellsworth was showing how he got all that wood out of there for a tiny hole.
Right.
A bowl with a small child sitting in it. Those were exciting.
Right. Okay.
So I guess I then started to take my own path.
Okay. And then at some point you had a nice looking studio overlooking a lake or.
I was the second. I was in my own. So where I did my training.
Mm-hmm.
When Dougie passed, his daughter kept it on for 2 years, and then it became vacant. And it was in in Dartington in Totnes, which was an artsy place, and there was David Leitch's pottery there. So it was Bernard Leitch's pottery there. So it was a famous little site anyway.
Sure.
So I took that over and started there, and I had 10 years there with half gallery, half studio.
Okay.
And so I sold to the public and learned the market, and some 10 other artists work in that studio.
Okay.
Before my eldest boy unfortunately got cancer. He's fine now, he's still with us. But we had a turmoil time, and I was like, I need to get out of the shop, the public and everywhere else, and do more making than dealing with customers. And that's when I moved to the Riverside studio. That was a special place.
Okay, but then why did you want to purchase the States? I mean,
so much traveling. I separated from my wife back then, so 18 years ago now. And I've been traveling on the road for 16 or more years, teaching and demonstrating. But it was loving the travel, loving America so much, and as much as it has to offer. I've been very privileged and fortunate enough to travel around the country and see so much of it more than some of our fellow countrymen do. So I moved over to spend more time here.
Okay.
It was a business move. Why did I leave it? Hard thing to leave a Riverside studio. There's Riverside studios here.
Right.
It was really with the two companies, King Arthur's Tools and Chromograph, that were waving at me saying, you'll be better off here, closer, because you're doing easier business. And that was...
That's right. You just got your citizenship?
Well, it's all good, isn't it?
All right.
Nobody...
I want to give him... how many congressmen... I want to give a question. You probably know the answer of, and I know.
Don't give me any questions. I hate it. Like terrible. I have exams and... I'll be like, I'll have it written on the back of my hand or inside or whatever.
Okay. Well, great. But you looked up with Chromograph and Arthur because you've got a whole line of finishing. So how did that come about? They just said...
They hunted me before I came over. Okay, Arthur's Tools already... I'd already had a link quit from using their equipment. And Chromograph saw a piece of work and wondered how it was done because they manufacture other things for other businesses. They have that chemistry, if you like, ready to roll. And they said, Nick, we want to talk to you about developing a line of products. And they're still young. That part is still a young company. It's a much more bigger company attached to it.
Oh, yes. I know that. It's amazing.
They major in the fish and lure industry and different things. So they already had the business ready to fire off and dish out. So, the reactive paints and the wood dyes, and it's nice to have stuff made in the US. I realize now I'm talking really fast. It's funny when...
No, you're not, because I'm from New York, and I think I can talk fast.
When people say, can you run that by me again? Rewind. Go back to that. So you may have to talk at
we'll slow
the video down a little bit.
Okay, so you moved to where?
I moved near Savannah, Georgia. That's the best place.
Beautiful area. Yeah, Savannah's beautiful.
On the coast. I'm a little bit in from Savannah, and that's where the studio is.
Okay, and you have a studio and a school. You're kind of
it's a cheap work in progress. It's an old brick building that happened to be there near the Chromograph factory.
Okay.
They said, kind of tongue-in-cheek, well, that's available. And I was like, let me have a look. And everything's there. It's a tumbleweed town, a little bounce down, places to eat. The post office is there, the bank's there, great little Mexican there, everything's there.
Okay.
So I went, actually, this isn't a bad idea. So it used to be a t-shirt factory, and it was all kind of mess when I got in there. And I was allowed to kind of do what I want within reason. So full open ceilings in there, 16 feet with the original slow ground pine, old growth pine.
Oh, nice.
In the roof and red brick. So I was able to make it Nick's place. So I put steel on the inside, muriatic acid and hydrogen peroxide. Didn't have a paint on it. And I put all sorts of antiques around the building.
You have a gallery in there too?
I know, because you get Nick Agar walking around. It's woodworking paraphernalia that you have here that we don't have in Europe because it was melted down for the war. So there's loads of old goodies. I mean, some of the contraptions you'll know, Scott.
Flywheel.
Yeah, a flywheel that just sets the blade on a big saw and then moves it forwards. The mechanics in it, so they're just stuck around the place. And then
some of your work, you love the gears.
Yeah, I love gears. They're like weird musical instruments. I picked up a giant sousaphone, which is I can step inside this thing and play it. And it's old and rusty and bits missing. Well, that had to go on the wall.
Sure.
And then somebody gave me like a 140-pound tarpon that their mother had caught years ago, and you have the mount. So this giant fish.
Does it see when you clap your hands?
No, it doesn't do that now. It's not like that hairy salmon. Some crazy stuff from it. I want to make like the Nick's place.
Yeah.
And as a robust dealer, of course, we have a workshop full of top gear. You just need to turn up with your smock. Everything's provided.
It's all there.
Small groups. The second studio is set up in that environment of goodies with everybody gets their own station with micro power carvers, their own pyrography, their own airbrush equipment, all their own dust extraction.
Sure.
So you just move into your own little place in both studios.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah, that's going well. Of course, COVID.
Yeah, COVID.
We're just talking about over supper.
Oh, sure.
What a pain that was.
Well, hopefully that's we're done with that. And things. So where can we find you? Nick Agar Studios.
NickAgarStudios.com. You got it? Okay. Thanks for putting that within.
Great.
It always seems like there's loads to tell, and we just roll on, and no notes, no.
No, we're just like right here.
But inspiration is one thing I think I didn't answer.
Sure.
An artistic side. So I take photographs wherever I am in the world, or what's at my feet, what's up there.
Sure.
Zoom in close on it, and then see if I could put that on the material.
That does translate.
We can walk in here and we're like, so why did you do this? Why did you do that? And it's not going to art school. It's just taking notice of something that
Being aware,
interested in.
and seeing, looking.
Some people say, I can't. Well, I want to go in, look into your head. No, you don't. Or yours.
Right.
Or yours.
Right.
Never go there.
No, you don't want to don't go there.
You know that. But I had a gentleman come over a long way from overseas, and I gave him an exercise to sketch some ideas out on paper. And I don't like this. It's like being at school. And he said, I'm not like you. I don't have interests like you do. Where am I going to get inspiration from? I said, well, what was your career? So when I was in telecommunications, something to stop, phone jamming. I said, well, there must have been symbols. And he said, of course, many. I said, put them down. Right. He then transferred that designs onto the wooden surface.
Beautiful.
And I said, if you don't use that, I'm going to.
Right.
So and that was awesome. And I said, it's yours.
Sure.
You just got to find something that interests you.
I always say it's your passion. Whatever your passion is, just put that into your work.
And then it's learning the material, isn't it?
Sure. Obviously, there's the balance between technical skill, but there's also putting your soul into the work.
Absolutely. That's a never-ending journey.
Yeah, it is. Well, great.
My saying is if you don't like what you made, it'll always keep you warm.
Well, Nick, it's been great hanging with you. So check out NickAgarStudios.com, Imagine Woodworking, and Marc Adams School of Woodworking. Great place. Great seeing you. And thanks. Subscribe, like, follow, share, all that.
Press all the buttons, and if you stayed this long, thanks again.
See you. Okay, take care. Thank you. All right. Beautiful.
That was a lot of conversation.
Yeah,